Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, and little did the world know that this was the start of World War II and the Holocaust. Gerda Weissmann Klein lived in Bielsko, Poland. Only a couple days after Germany invaded Poland, Gerda's town was under the German authority. Gerda was Jewish, and she would soon find that her life would never be the same again. With her determination, Gerda was able to overcome the tragedy of the Holocaust, and out of the tragedy, a triumph was born. This is the Holocaust through her eyes.
After the end of World War I, Germany was in a state of depression, and the Jewish people were blamed for getting Germany into the depression. This instilled hatred and mistreatment towards the Jews. Adolf Hitler supported this idea, and when Hitler became president of Germany in 1933, after the death of Paul von Hindenburg, he took it upon himself to bring utmost destruction to the Jews. This is what started the Holocaust. When Hitler began taking over Europe in 1939, Jews were trying to leave before they could be killed. In August of 1939, 15-year-old Gerda Weissmann Klein was coming home from her vacation because her father had suffered a mild heart attack. When they arrived home, they were met by many people trying to leave Poland because of the impending doom of the Nazis. Gerda's uncle sent them a cable that read, "Poland's last hour has come. Dangerous for Jews to remain. Your visa is waiting at Warsaw Embassy. Urge you to come immediately." But because her father's health condition, he couldn't travel, so he told Gerda and her older brother Arthur to go. But they refused, for they wanted their family to stick together. In 18 short days, Germany had conquered Poland. Bielsko had once been a peaceful city, but now it was anything but peaceful under the Nazi rule.
A few weeks after the war started, Arthur and all able-bodied men were recruited to go and rebuild the buildings that the Nazis had destroyed in their invasion of Poland. When the day arrived for Arthur to leave, Gerda said goodbye to him, and when Arthur disappeared out of sight, that would be the last time Gerda saw him. Before Christmas of 1941, Gerda's family had to sell all of their possessions and move into the basement of their house, because the good Germans would get to move into the upstairs of displaced Jewish people's homes. Gerda heard of a family that committed suicide together, and she was thinking that maybe her family should commit suicide together. Gerda's father came up behind her and said, "Promise me that, no matter what happens, you will never do it." Gerda promised him that she would never commit suicide. This was one of the life-saving things Gerda's father taught her. After Christmas in 1941, Jews were given ration cards and white patches with the word Jew on it in blue lettering that went on the arm of their coats. On April 19, 1942, all the Jews in Bielsko were moved near the railway station outside of town. This became the Bielsko Ghetto. A few weeks later, there was a notice posted that everyone who was physically capable had to register for work. Gerda and her parents signed up. Her father was sent to work in Suhau, fortifying the river. Gerda and her mother worked in Wadowitz, sewing military uniforms and accessories.
Shortly after, Gerda's father was sent away to a newly established camp in Suhau. The night before her father was to leave, he made Gerda promise him to wear her ski boots when she left. This promise would save Gerda's life. Gerda and her mother were sent to separate camps along with other women. To go to the camps, all the women were assembled, and the younger women were put in one truck, while the older women were placed in another. Gerda jumped out, trying to get to her mother, who was in the other truck. A man picked her up and put her back in the truck, saying, "You are too young to die." The last words Gerda's mother ever said to her were, "Be strong." The truck rolled to a stop outside a train station. Gerda and the other girls boarded a train. It was on the train that Gerda told herself, "I am going to live." With Gerda on the train was her close friend Ilse. Gerda also met a woman named Suze Kunz, and she would become one of Gerda's dearest friends in the Holocaust.
The train pulled into the Bolkenhain station. Gerda and the other girls got off the train and were met by the leader of the Bolkenhain labor camp, Frau Kugler. Frau Kugler, barking orders, seemed to be a very harsh woman, but she would prove to be otherwise. Bolkenhain was a new weaving camp, and it was there that Gerda learned to weave on 4 looms at once. At Bolkenhain, Gerda fell ill, and her finger and toenails became infected. It was then that there was to be an inspection, and harsh-appearing Frau Kugler saved Gerda's life. She rushed her to the looms and made it look like she was working. This spared Gerda from being sent to Auschwitz because she was ill. In August of 1943, Gerda and the women of Bolkenhain were divided into 3 groups to disband Bolkenhain. They would either be sent to the labor camps Landshut or Marsdorf. Gerda and Ilse were sent to Marsdorf, while Suze was going to Landshut. When they arrived at Marsdorf, it was evident that this camp was not like Bolkenhain. The first few days, Gerda worked laying bricks, oiling and cleaning machinery parts. Gerda only worked there for a few days because she was reassigned to flax detail. Flax had to be moved from a freight car and down a human chain until it reached the barn, where it had to be stacked. Flax was prickly and dusty, so it got in your eyes, lungs, and wounds. And at night, a few girls and Gerda had to unload coal from freight cars. Gerda could not take the back-breaking work of flax detail and coal much longer. Mercifully, she was spared, along with Ilse and a few others, to go weave at Landshut.
Conditions at Landshut were much better than they were at Marsdorf. Suze and Frau Kugler were also there. Gerda was not at Landshut long because it was disbanded. They were moved to a camp named Grunberg, where there were about 1,000 women living there. At Grunberg, Gerda worked on a spinning machine. Gerda was soon reassigned to recording information on the products being made at Grunberg. It was a much better job than working at a spinning machine. In early 1945, a death march began because the Nazis were trying to hide the evidence of their crimes. There was cold, starvation, and death consistently on the death march. Gerda saw some girls breaking off their toes like twigs and realized how grateful she was that her dad had made her wear her ski boots. Gerda's closest friend Ilse died on the journey. Of the 2,000 women who started the death march, only about 150 survived. The death march began from Grunberg and ended in Volery, Czechoslovakia, over 300 miles long. The Germans left the survivors at an abandoned bicycle factory at the end of the war. The morning of May 7, 1945, American soldiers came to liberate them. When the soldiers arrived, one ran out and spoke to Gerda in German. His name was Klein, and he was soon to become Gerda's husband. Gerda's 21st birthday, May 8, 1945, was Victory in Europe Day. Of all Gerda's family and friends, she was the only one who survived the Holocaust.
In June of 1946, Gerda and Kurt were married, and they moved to the United States that same year. In 1995, a documentary on Gerda's life, One Survivor Remembers, was released. It won an Academy Award in 1995. In her acceptance speech, Gerda spoke of how happy she is to be alive, how the documentary is a way to honor those who died in the Holocaust, and to tell the stories of those who will never be heard. Today, Gerda speaks around the country about her experience in the Holocaust and of hope, survival, acceptance in the world, and to educate people about the past so that the Holocaust will never happen again. In August of 2008, she founded Citizenship Counts, a group that teaches how to be understanding and empathetic. Her message: hatred and tyranny are not over. On November 17, 2010, President Barack Obama awarded Gerda the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor a civilian can receive. Gerda is a living memory of one of the darkest times in the history of the world. The Holocaust is a tragedy, but Gerda is a survivor of the Holocaust, making her story a triumph.
As Gerda says, if you think there is no way out, remember, never give up.